Okay, so for this question, I'm going to talk about the response to the question about whether gender's had any effect in my experiences. This is something which I've chosen to respond to largely out of responsibility for this whole project, because I'm the only male contributor in this first phase, and because one of our other contributors wanted to talk about gender, I felt like it was important that be something that I'd respond to. I think it's really interesting, and again, this is one of these things where perhaps it's hard for me to talk about without and separate myself from my position as a psychologist and a therapist myself. I said something in the last video about worrying that I was just some middle-class white boy with first world problems, and I think that I still, when I hear about other people's experiences, and when we think about some of the other experiences that are on some of our other contributors to this project have spoken about, I'm really aware that actually the number of things that are likely to have affected me over my life are much lower as a result, or it feels that way, as a result of being male compared to female. I think the knowledge of what girls and women are more likely to have experienced, and my own understanding of how the society we live in and the patriarchy of that society really puts women at such disadvantage from the word go. I think that I kind of I'm really aware that actually, through all that, I've found things really difficult. I kind of almost have that sense of, well, it could have been so much worse, and it probably you're probably very lucky that it wasn't worse, because you've had far less of those kind of things to contend with that I think a woman by my age probably has done, almost as a default. I think some of what that does is it possibly contributed, or it didn't cause me to delay in actually accessing support and therapy, because I think that delay came from other characteristics that I've had for over my life and developed over my life. But I think it contributed to that thing of also being aware. I like to kind of think of myself as sort of like, I think that probably an ally to feminism is probably the best way of putting it, and aware of these kind of prejudices and privileges that almost then contribute to that sense of, well, what you're going through can't be that bad. It's not as, it can't be as bad as what a lot of people have done, what a lot of people go through. And I think that was something that actually contributed to why I didn't come forward. What I think I see now is that I realise that I guess I probably had an intellectual understanding of, but now a lot more personal understanding, including experience now, having spoken to friends, as I've said before, that belief that you don't talk about the stuff as a man can come from different places. It can come from, I think the typical idea is there's this idea that you have to be strong as a man, which I think was possibly part of what was there for me. My ideas about being the perfect husband and perfect dad were undoubtedly mixed in with that idea, gender identity of that being part of the role that I was meant to take and what that role looked like, even though my ideas of that role were in many ways a modern concept of maleness, very different from the more typical concepts that you hear about sometimes of, you go back to the post-war kind of stuff and all that kind of. So I kind of think I've got a relatively modern idea of what a man should be, which includes actually that sharing responsibility and all of those kinds of things. But in itself, trying to do that seems to be something which brought with it pressures about actually what I could share and when I should share, and that affected me in some ways. How else did gender have any effects on me? I don't know. I think the fact that it took a tipping point, a crisis point for me to actually talk with my friends about what was going on for me, and for us to open up that conversation, says something about I think our gendered way of talking. And this is something that I've spoken about with my wife, about how actually perhaps if I and my friends had a more general tolerance and expectation that you do just talk about how you're feeling and so on, rather than the very kind of banter focused, light-hearted stuff. I suspect that I if I'd had that kind of conversation a lot earlier, then probably I don't think I would have ever developed my difficulties wouldn't have ever developed as severely as they did do. So I guess for me those are some of the ways in which gender affected the way that I suppose my difficulties developed. But it's awful. I really just don't feel like I can finish without acknowledging that I feel like I've had life a lot better and a lot easier through being a man, and I don't know how to finish other than leaving it there.